I am Catherine Macy. I'm one of the staff members here giving the talk. The meditation talk tonight is the illusion of balance. So the question of the week this week is how quickly do you get back on balance when you lose your balance? And what's the purpose of losing your balance? Does it have any benefit to it? So I wanted to take this a little bit and really just look at the illusion of balance, because there's a great story about Ueshiba, who is the founder of Aikido, and he was reportedly, he overheard his students in a class one day, and they were talking about how quickly, or how he just stayed on balance all the time. How is it possible he stayed on balance all the time? And Ueshiba said, I'm not on balance. I'm just getting back to balance so quickly that you don't notice me being off balance. And that's a really interesting place to come from, like the illusion of balance. Like it looks like he's on balance, but he's just coming back to that place of centeredness so quickly that you don't notice him getting off it. And I want to explore this some more. So it seemed like an interesting topic. I can't see who's online, but hello there online. I can't see who you are. And the starting place, I think, is to know where balance is, right? Because if you don't know where your center is, if you don't know where your place of perfect balance is, you can't go back to it. Right? There's nowhere to go back to if you don't know where that place is. And if you find yourself going back to somewhere where you think's on balance, then when you try to move from that place, it feels awkward and it feels you're off balance because you're not quite in the place where you need to be. So I'm not necessarily just talking about physical balance, because although that is one place that is balance is really obvious, but I'm also talking about our lives too. Like, where are we in our lives? How do we have ourselves be in balance in our lives? One of the ways this shows up, like the knowing of where you are on balance, I've been teaching Tai Chi to some senior citizens who are in an assisted living space. And their sense of where they are on balance, where they're balanced on one foot so they can pick up their other leg, has shifted to an extent that where they think they're in balance, they go to try to pick up their leg, but they have to move in order to pick up that foot, right? So they're actually not in balance. So their perception of where the balance point is has shifted in their brain, and they're not actually conscious of where that place is. So I think for us as people, as we age, it's really important to know where that place of balance is for all the physical reasons, right? I've forgotten what the percentage is, but it's something crazy, like 80% of people who have a fall when they're elderly pass within the next year, something like that. It's some crazy number. Like, just either it's because their balance is way off and they're more prone to falling and there's other things going on and whatever. I don't know what the reason is, but it's a huge percentage of people who fall pass within that year of falling. So keeping your sense of physical balance is a really important physical thing to do for ourselves as we age, and just any time in life. it's important to be able to balance. People who have neuropathy, which is a condition where you can't feel certain areas of your body, especially when they get it on their feet, they can't tell where they are on their feet. So for them, their sense of balance is destroyed. It's like it's not even possible. They have to learn to use the visual cues or the other sense of their balance in their ears and wherever else, but visual cues and other props that they might need in order to know where that balance is. And there's all sorts of physical things that make it much more difficult as we age to maintain our sense of balance and physically. And when we start to think about that in terms of our lives, it gets even more complicated, because we're not just talking about left and right, we're not just talking about forwards and back, we're talking about, the push-pull from family, the push-pull from friends, the push-pull from work, the push-pull from wanting to have a life outside of work, the push-pull from all the different people and situations and groups and environment and hobbies and everything that you have going on in your life, all the things. How do you find your sense of balance in that? Because it's so multidimensional that the point of balance is maybe non-existent. Or maybe we get to peel away some of the things that are maybe a little bit extra in our lives so that we can find that point where we can be at center, where we can be present, and where we can be in balance for ourselves and our lives. And how do we find that place? How do we find that place? How do we know when we've got it? How do we know when we've got that place of centeredness, of balance, of being in the right place and not feeling way off kilter? Because I don't know that maybe it was possible for the Buddha, but I don't think so given all the writings. Maybe it's possible for, an enlightened being to be in that place of center even though they're being buffeted. I don't know about that. But I think that even the Buddha talks about Mara still coming to visit him. And Mara is the person who brought all the suffering and all the troubles and all the tribulations and all of the trials to Buddha as he was becoming enlightened. And Mara still visited him afterwards and still brought all those things. And the Buddha was still buffeted by those things, still taken off balance. But having learned to be enlightened, I guess, having learned to be at that place of balance and learning to come back to that place, I think like where Shiva, he's coming back extremely quickly, so quickly that we don't notice, right? So quickly that it's not possible for somebody else to see that person leaving their balance and coming back to their balance. So for me, it's finding the place where I am not drawn by my emotions or taken out by a demand from somebody that is something that I can't or don't want to do. Right? I've got to say no. I don't want to do that. It's like that doesn't fit into my sense of how I can remain in balance for myself. And at the same time, what's the importance of being knocked off your balance and being able to come back to balance? Always there are lessons in challenges. There are lessons in when you get knocked off your course. and you want to steer yourself back. How do you bring yourself back? What are the tools that you can incorporate? What are the tools that you can utilize to turn the ship back to being on course again, to that place of being in balance? Perhaps it's paying attention to the present. Perhaps it's coming back to the breath. I've been learning this very, very cool thing, which I'm not fully through reading yet, but I'm going to share a little bit of it. There's, in our brains, there's a part of our brain that is all connected to the amygdala and the limbic system, whereby it is mostly connected to the emotions there, and that's the primal part of our brain. It's the fight, the flight, or the freeze part of our brain. And when we're connected to that, it's our thinking part of the brain too. It's the rumination part of the brain. It's the place where we worry. It's connected to the place where we worry. So all of those connections are strong and together, but the parts of our brain that are connected to us paying attention to our senses, so paying attention to our touch, paying attention to our hearing or to our sight, to our breath, the parts of the brain that are connected to that are not connected to the emotional part. And you can't be doing both of those parts of the brain don't light up at the same time. Like, it's not possible to be fully present and be fully engaged in your emotions. Those two things are completely separate in our brains, which is really cool, because it means that if we want to lessen the impact of emotions that we're having, then we can pay attention to our senses. And when we pay attention to our senses, then we can get back into that place of balance a little more easily, a little more calmly. And that's not to minimize any emotions that we're having. It's not to put them away in a cupboard and close the door on them. We don't want to do that either, because they'll just come back tenfold at some point later in our lives, which is not helpful at all. But we do want to be able to navigate our lives in a way that is healthy for us and healthy for others around us. And sometimes that means when somebody cuts you off from the freeway, you don't need to get upset about that. They just went in front of you. Oh well, they went in front of you. You know, that's okay. That's what happened. And it's a chance to go, ooh, that was surprising. It was a bit fast. I wasn't expecting that. Great-o, okay, carry on, let's go. Coming back to our breath, coming back to the sensation that you have with your hands on the steering wheel. How many breaths can you take with your hands on the steering wheel, really feeling the bumps of the steering wheel where you're holding your hands? How many breaths can you take where you're touching your two fingertips and paying attention so much that you can feel the ridges of your fingerprints? How many breaths can you take where you're fully conscious of those ridges on your fingertips? Paying attention to that level of detail takes you into the part of the brain that is present. So I've been practicing that this week, which has been a phenomenal experience, and it's deepened my practice of my meditation, because I've really taken those senses and been working with those within my meditation. And there's a book called The Mind Illuminated, which also talks about this in terms of deepening our meditation. We have that here in the dojo. And it is, I don't know why, for some reason I've never really done that, but it's been really something that's been enriching my meditation experience. So we're going to take that now and we're going to pay attention to our breath. So let's find a place to sit with your spine straight and sit comfortably, and we'll take this into our meditation practice tonight. So as you sit, be conscious of the weight on your sit bones. Sit with your spine straight, your chin parallel to the floor, eyes closed, slightly upturned. And we're going to start by paying attention to our breath. We'll take a few breaths together. Breathe in for a count of 4. Hold for 2. Out for 6. In. Hold. Out. And as you're breathing in, really notice your body expanding to allow the breath to come in. How it pauses at the top. And notice your body contracting as you breathe out fully. Breathe in. Hold. Out. One more. Breathe in. Hold. Out. End with a double exhale. Let the breath come in. Let the breath go out. And as you sit tonight, anytime you notice your mind wandering, come back to a physical sensation. Notice the breath in your body. You don't need to change it. You don't need to do anything with it. Just allow it to be. Just notice it. And be here now.